Happy Thursday, everyone, and welcome into this community update. I am Isaiah Buchanan here with Thomas Wasson. And Thomas, you were one of our community leaders here at FreightWaves, and you also had on another community leader here at FreightWaves this week for your show Loaded and Rolling. Could you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, definitely. Had Alan Adler, Truck Tech. You may know him from that. And, it's kind of a catch up. It's a roundup about what was going on because there's been a lot of new moves. One of them being, of course, that Freightliner released their updated Cascadia. So they added some bells and whistles and a few other nice things. And then another one of them was the ongoing saga with Nikola, as well as some of the stuff going on in the engine space. So we're talking about fuel sources. Cummins released an engine that can handle both natural gas as well as diesel, and they're looking to add hydrogen. So it's one of those fun conversations because, out of nowhere, it feels like things are getting real in the space, and with 2027 coming along and the EPA stuff, we talked a little bit about that. There's a lot to keep on your radar.
I still don't think diesel's going to be going anywhere anytime soon, though. So, Alan has talked about that a lot on Truck Tech, and it seems to me like the next, 2 decades, for sure, diesel is going to definitely be in the space as well.
Yeah, Alan predicts at least 15, 20 years. This is kind of the hype mode. This is the hype moment because the problem is for long-haul applications, it doesn't really work yet. Now, it works in shorter haul. You see UPS trucks with natural gas and a few other things. But for really coast-to-coast long haul, you have to have infrastructure. You have to have cost, weight factors. There's a whole bunch of other things that we haven't really worked out the kinks. But it's cool because we're in the early stages. So that's what matters is that where we're starting to talk about these engine releases. But one of the cool things he talked about and that I was thinking about was that it's a hurry up and wait approach, if that makes any sense. So when we're thinking about, is this going to be the next thing? We know for sure that diesel engines aren't going anywhere, but we're in this arms race between, well, is it going to be the hydrogen truck? Is it going to be the natural gas truck? Is it going to be the Tesla vehicle? Or poor Nikola, who has made more cuts and is running on fumes, metaphorically. So it's fun to watch because you're going to hear a lot more talking heads. You're going to hear a lot more buzz. But at the end of the day, it's almost like the Wright brothers, and we have a few early examples, but we haven't made the first commercial airliner yet, so we're still just kind of eyeballing it. It's like sports speculating early in the season. The football terminology, we don't know if our quarterback's good yet or if he's going to be the one to make it to the end.
And a lot of these right now are probably like thinking, when a quarterback goes up against a soft defense, he might look really good.
Yes.
But then you get him against a real test, and he doesn't perform as well, and then you really start having to evaluate where you're at and what you need to do to actually make things better.
I'm going to put a sports analogy. Nico Iamaleava is the greatest example of an
good
electric truck. Good
pronunciation, by the way. That was good.
Hey, put me on an ESPN. They still mess it up. Calling you, ESPN. So looking at Nico, he's a great example. I'm a Tennessee fan. The first 3 games, he looked really well. So let's pretend that Nico is a battery electric truck. Short haul applications around a port, you're right, because it's a very limited set. It's comfortable in that you have very, good standards, but you're not going to be throwing any curves. You're not going to get any other reads. But now when we're thinking of a battery electric truck going further out, that's like Nico dealing with an actual defense where we can put 3 guys up front, 3 in the back, and freak him out. He can't do his reads right. Well, it's the same issue with the battery electric trucks. Oh, crap, where am I going to charge? Oh, you mean to tell me I can't haul as much? Oh, if I'm having to go 500 miles and I can only go 300 miles, this is actually a problem. And so now the battery makers, and you'll see this with Tesla and Nikola, they won't really always talk to details. They're having to go back and look at the film and adjust because we thought we had something, but now that the alternatives have found out, now that the environment and the enemy has a say, or the other team, and this way the freight market, we're going to have to go back to the drawing board. We have to make some kinks. And so it's kind of like that. It's a very early season, but, in the case of Nico and battery electric trucks, they may be considered a Heisman contender, but we still got a long season. And if you're looking at other teams, like you're thinking of Diesel and other folks, where it's very, very early on, there's a lot of unanswered questions that we're finally getting the looks, but it did take a minute to see it.
And Thomas, I want to switch gears for just a minute. There was some new research that just came out of MIT last week. Do you think that you could kind of break that down for us some?
MIT had some cool research. This one was about tenders. Here at FreightWaves, we love tenders, not chicken tenders, freight tenders. And so they took 5 years worth of data from a few large customers, and they were digging in to see what impacts whether you're going to take the load or not, accepting the tender. Will you reject it or not reject it? And so looking at the data sets, it was during the COVID bump. And so one of the really fascinating, 2 big takeaways here, because I'm a little long-winded. One, freight brokers were in a really good position. They continued to show that they could step up because when asset-based carriers had no capacity, they sent it back. So you tender rejection. You ain't getting that truck. Now the broker said, well, I'll find you a truck. Well, the problem was as well that price creeps in. And so one of the other takeaways with the research, great research, by the way, MIT, Angie Acocella, and a few others put it together, is that at the end of the day, pricing is key. You have to price it correctly. Now, right now, brokers can cover it because of price, but I'd love to see the research with 10 years worth of data. Keep the conversation. It's early. No one's really done tender data before. There's a few instances that we know of theoretically, but it's really great to see how when someone shares this with you, where it goes on and where the kinks in the supply chain messed up. Because for the longest time, we did not check the electronically tendered data. We just looked at spot rates. And so it's early in the game, but I'm really thinking this is some promising research. The big question moving forward is going to be, now that we know that brokers do have flexibility, they're getting a bigger share of the pie, their image has improved, can they keep it?
And Thomas, is some of this information going to be in what's coming out in your newsletter this week?
It came out and loaded and rolling last week. You can check it out. Just Google Thomas Wasson. I'm cool enough now. You can find me as an author on FreightWaves. For the newsletter this week, we got some really good stuff. CAS Information recently released some data. There's a few other things I'm eyeballing as well. I think that honestly, we are waiting to see the hurricane impacts. I did put a blurb on that. The market's bifurcating. What that means is it's splitting two different directions. A tale of two cities. I titled it A Tale of Two Markets. And what that means is that the contracted tender rejection space that like MIT did the research on, we saw the spike. So that shows theoretically that's right. FEMA freight and other stuff is crowding it out and they're turning it down. But the spot market is just meh. It was flat over the past week. And so big questions ahead is that, will this continue, or will tender rejection rates go back down to kind of matching the spot, or is this the beginning? It's so early to tell. Peak season's coming up. October, Zach Strickland had a great quote last week. October is a slow month in trucking. We've had 2 hurricanes and a port strike. That's got to do something. Now, the question is, we dropped a big rock. I can see the ripples. Will it last, or will it settle?
And Thomas, if people want to get your newsletter or your show with Alan out there this week, how do they do that?
Check it out, freightwaves.com/loaded and rolling. You can find it there. It goes out Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. The live show, Apple, YouTube, Spotify, you can find it there. I think it's just loaded and rolling on YouTube. I'm also on SiriusXM this week. I'm doing Tuesday and Thursday. You're listening to this on Thursday, of course. I got SiriusXM on drive time. I'm filling in for Grace. You're going to hear my voice a lot.
And Thomas, real quickly before we wrap things up, you're a Tennessee fan. Who you taking this weekend, Tide or the Vols?
I love Nico Iamaleava. I really do, but he's a redshirt freshman. He's like the electric truck. It's really early. Alabama has consistently showed, despite their best efforts and some soft looks, and beat by Vanderbilt. At the end of the day, I think the Tide's going to get it together. I do think, though, that it's just like questions remain in the electric space. Questions remain on Tide. Can they hold up, and what will that mean for the rest of their season? It's at Neyland, right?
It is in Neyland, yes.
Woo!
Going to make things really difficult. It gets loud.
Actually, correction, Tennessee by 3.
Tennessee by 3. All right, Thomas, thank you so much for joining us this weekend. Best of luck to your Vols. Everybody, make sure that you're tuning into these community updates every day on FreightWaves TV. You can catch them live at 9:30, or you can catch them on demand on our YouTube channel. Just go and search FreightWaves on YouTube, and you'll find all of those there. Thomas, thank you again for joining us.